My son-in-law's family declared my daughter passed away during childbirth. When I rushed to the hospital, they blocked me from seeing her one last time. As a detective, I knew something was wrong. They were lying. I pretended to be devastated and left. Then I snuck back, hiding in the stairwell, watching them. What I saw in that hospital room and what I heard that night made me run to my car and make one desperate phone call. I only had 30 days. I need you to stay with me on this. Comment below, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Because what happened next in that hospital changed everything. At 4:00 a.m. on December 15th, the phone rang through the darkness, and a cold voice told me my daughter was dead. I'd been a detective for 30 years. I knew the sound of a lie before the sentence finished forming. But when Preston Hawthorne's voice came through that phone, flat, mechanical, emotionless, my body still went cold. Lydia didn't make it. She hemorrhaged during delivery. She's gone, Elliot. Gone. The word hung in the air like a blade. My hand clenched around the phone until I heard the plastic crack. Outside my window in Newton, snow fell in thick, silent sheets. December, in Massachusetts. The kind of cold that crawls into your bones and stays. What do you mean, gone? My voice sounded wrong. Not a father's voice, a cop's. Controlled. Distant. I'm sorry. I have to go. The hospital needs. He hung up. I sat in the dark for a few seconds. Then I moved. 15 minutes later, I was driving through a winter storm on Route 9 toward Boston. A 45-minute trip on a good day. I made it in 32. Ice covered the roads. I didn't slow down. My daughter was at Massachusetts General Hospital, and something in Preston's voice had triggered every instinct I'd honed over 3 decades. He hadn't sounded devastated. He'd sounded relieved. The hospital rose out of the storm glass and steel glowing under fluorescent lights. I left my car in the emergency lot and ran. ICU, 4th floor. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my 63-year-old knees burning but steady. The hallway smelled like antiseptic and fear. I knew this place. I'd walked these halls on other cases other nights like this. Room 412 should be. Elliot. I stopped. Helena Hawthorne stood in front of the ICU doors like a guard. Preston's mother, Lydia's mother-in-law. I'd never trusted her something sharp and calculating behind her eyes, but now she looked at me like I didn't belong. She's gone, Elliot, she said coldly. You need to leave. Immediate family only. I am immediate family, I said. I'm her father. She didn't move. Preston is her husband. He's handling everything. There's nothing for you to do. I want to see my daughter. That's not possible. She hesitated. She's been moved? You should go home. Preston will call you about the arrangements. Arrangements, services, moved. Every word felt wrong. The timing, her stance blocking the doors, the way her eyes never softened. When did she die? I asked quietly. Does it matter? It does. 3:47. And Preston called me at 4, I said. 13 minutes later. Her jaw tightened. He was in shock. What room was she in? Elliot, you need to... What room? We stared at each other. Snow hammered the windows behind her. A monitor beeped steadily somewhere down the hall. Finally she said, go home. Grieve. Let us handle this. She turned and disappeared through the ICU doors. They closed with a soft hiss. I stood there for a moment. Then I turned, went back to the stairwell, and walked down 1 floor. I didn't leave the hospital. I went to the parking garage, found a corner spot with a clear view of the 4th floor windows, and waited. Because I'd looked into Helena Hawthorne's eyes and seen something I'd recognized 1,000 times before. She was lying, and if she was lying about my daughter's death, I needed to know why. I didn't leave the hospital. I waited in the parking garage until dark. Then I did what I do best. I investigated. By 7 p.m., the visitor rush had thinned. I pulled a Red Sox cap low over my eyes, turned my jacket inside out, old surveillance trick, and walked back through the main entrance like I belonged there. Confidence is 90% of any undercover operation. The 4th floor ICU had security, but security guards see hundreds of faces every shift. They don't see individuals. They see patterns. I followed a family of 4 through the checkpoint, nodding at the guard like I was with them. Room 412. I'd memorized the number from the hallway directory. The ICU was arranged in a circle around the nurses' station, 12 rooms total, each with a glass door and a sliding curtain for privacy. Most curtains were drawn. Room 412's wasn't. And when I got close enough to see inside, my heart stopped. Lydia. Alive. My daughter lay in that hospital bed, tubes and wires, connecting her to machines that beeped in steady rhythm. Her chest rose and fell. Her heart monitor showed a strong, regular pulse. Not dead, not even close. I pressed my hand against the glass. My vision blurred. "Baby girl," I whispered. "Daddy's here." She didn't move, didn't blink. The machines kept their steady chorus. "Mr. Hawthorne." I jerked back, ducking into the alcove beside the room. Two figures stood 15 feet away in the hallway. Preston and a woman in a white coat. Doctor from the stethoscope. "I need you to understand the situation," the doctor said. Her voice was calm, professional. "Your wife is in what we call a locked-in state. It's extremely rare. She's in a deep coma, but there's a possibility, small maybe 5%, that she can hear and process what's happening around her, even though she cannot respond in any way. 5%. My daughter might be trapped in there aware, listening. What are our options?" Preston's voice was flat, cold. "Not is she going to be okay? Not what can we do to help her? Just options. Right now, we maintain life support and monitor for changes. Some patients in this state recover. Most don't. If there's no improvement within... How long do we keep her like this?" The doctor hesitated. "That's a conversation for you and your family to have with our ethics board. Usually after 30 days, we begin discussing long-term care options or other decisions. 30 days. I leaned against the wall, fists clenched. Preston wasn't asking these questions out of concern. He was asking them like a man calculating costs and benefits. "I see," Preston said. "And she can't hear us. Can't understand." "Most likely not. The 5% chance is optimistic." "Good, that's good to know." "Good." The doctor walked away. Preston stood there for another moment, staring through the glass at his wife. No grief on his face and no tears, just assessment. Then he pulled out his phone and typed something. I should have left, should have stayed hidden. But I needed to hear more. That's when I heard the third voice. Helena's voice, cold, calculated, and absolutely chilling. "We need to talk," she said. "Somewhere private." Their voices echoed down the sterile hospital corridor. Every word was a nail in their coffins. They just didn't know I was the one holding the hammer. I'd slipped into the stairwell alcove when Helena appeared, old habit, from decades of stakeouts. Now I pressed against the wall, barely breathing as they moved toward a small conference room 20 feet away. The door didn't close all the way. Sloppy, arrogant. Perfect for me. "We can't do this in the hallway," Helena said, her voice sharp. "Someone might hear." "There's no one here, Mom." Preston sounded tired, stressed. "There's always someone." A third voice, younger, feminine. "Can we just talk about this? I don't understand why you called me here." "Because you're part of this now, Sloan." Sloan. I filed the name away. Preston's assistant. I'd seen her at family dinners, hovering near him with coffee and files. Young, ambitious, pretty in a calculated way. Also apparently his mistress. Part of what Sloan asked. Helena's voice turned cold and efficient. "After 30 days, hospital policy allows family to discuss removing life support. It's legal. Clean. No one questions it." Silence. Then Preston, "You want to kill her." "I want to end a situation that benefits no one. She's gone, Preston. The woman you married doesn't exist anymore. What's in that room is a body with a heartbeat." My fist clenched so hard my nails drew blood. "What about Elliot?" Preston's voice wavered. "He'll fight this. He'll never agree. We don't need him to agree." Helena cut him off. "We already told him she died this morning. Now we stick to that story. Closed casket funeral. Quick cremation. He lives an hour away. He won't know the difference." "You want to fake a funeral while she's still alive?" Sloan sounded shocked. Good. At least one of them had some fragment of conscience. "It's not fake if she's essentially dead already," Helena said. "This is a mercy. This is murder." Sloane's voice rose. "This is practical." Helena's didn't. "Preston, you have a newborn daughter who needs a mother. Sloan, you can move into the house immediately. Help with the baby. People will understand you're the devoted assistant helping the grieving widower. By day 30, when we actually remove life support, Elliot will think she's been cremated for weeks. No one will question anything." I wanted to charge in. Wanted to put my hands around Helena's throat and squeeze until... No. Emotion gets you caught. Evidence gets justice. I'd spent 30 years building cases. Building cages for people who thought they were smarter than the law. And these three were about to learn what happens when you underestimate a detective. Especially one who's also a father. "What if someone finds out?" Preston asked. "Who the staff thinks Elliot believes she's dead. And in 30 days, it won't matter anyway." Helena paused. "Trust me, son, I've thought of everything. I heard chairs scraping. They were leaving. I pressed deeper into the alcove as they filed past Helena, first confident and cold. Preston second, his face pale and guilty. Sloane last, wiping tears. I waited until their footsteps faded. Then I walked out of that hospital and made one phone call. "Kieran," I said to my old partner, "I need your help, off the books, and I need it now." 3 days later, I buried an empty casket, and I played the role of my life, the broken father who believed his daughter was gone. But first I had work to do. Kieran Malloy showed up at my house 2 hours after I called. We'd been partners for 12 years before I retired. He knew my methods, trusted my instincts, and more importantly, knew when to ask questions and when to just act. "You want me to bug their house?" He sat at my kitchen table, coffee untouched. "Every room," I said. "I need everything. Elliot, if this goes south—" "It won't. They think I'm a grieving father who believes his daughter is Ash. They'll get sloppy." Kieran studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I'll need 48 hours. You've got 72. The funeral's Saturday, December 18th. Cold enough to see your breath. The kind of gray morning that matches grief. Except I wasn't grieving. I was performing. The cemetery was small, private. Maybe 20 people, co-workers of Lydia's, a few neighbors, Helena and Preston, standing in the front row like dutiful family. The casket sat above the grave, sealed and empty. I stood at the front, head bowed, shoulders shaking. Perfect picture of a broken man. Helena approached after the brief service. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Elliot." Her voice dripped with false sympathy. I looked up at her with red-rimmed eyes. "My baby girl, she's really gone?" "She's at peace now." I nodded, wiped my face. Let her see the devastation she expected. She actually smiled, small satisfied. She thought she'd won. That evening, Helena called. "We're having a small gathering for the baby. A welcome home celebration. I think it might help you to see Madison, to know Lydia's daughter is being cared for." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Thank you. I'd like that." The Beacon Hill house was lit up like Christmas. Inside, guests mingled with wine and small talk. And there in the center of it all was Sloane Parrish, holding my granddaughter, playing mother. She wore one of Lydia's cardigans. I recognized it immediately. Guests cooed over the baby, and Sloane smiled graciously, accepting congratulations, like she'd given birth herself. "You and Preston make such a beautiful family," someone said. "Thank you," Sloane replied. "It's been an adjustment, but we're managing." Managing. My daughter wasn't cold yet, and this woman was wearing her clothes, holding her child, accepting praise for her sacrifice. I moved forward. "That's my granddaughter." The room went quiet. Helena materialized beside me. "Elliot, perhaps you should—" "She's holding my granddaughter, wearing my daughter's clothes." My voice rose cracked perfectly. "You people are acting like Lydia never existed. Sir, you need to calm down. Get your hands off me." Helena snapped her fingers. 2 security guards appeared. "Elliot is understandably emotional. Please escort him out, gently." They took my arms. I struggled just enough, not too much, as they walked me to the door. "You're all monsters," I shouted back. "Monsters." The door slammed. I stood on the front steps, breathing hard, looking defeated. Inside my pocket, my phone buzzed. Text from Kieran, all devices planted, audio and video, every room. I walked to my car, climbed in, and allowed myself one small smile. When Helena slammed that door in my face, I didn't feel defeated. I felt victorious, because every word they said, every crime they committed, was now being recorded in high definition. On December 28th, Detective Kieran called with news that changed everything. My daughter hadn't given birth to one granddaughter. She'd given birth to 2. "You need to hear this," Kieran said when I answered. "It's from yesterday's recording." I put him on speaker and sat at my kitchen table. The audio crackled to life, hospital sounds, footsteps, then voices. Dr. Simona Archer spoke calm and professional. "Mr. Hawthorne, there's something you weren't informed about during the emergency. Your wife delivered twins. The second baby has been in the NICU. We've been calling her baby girl, too. She's stable now and ready to." Preston's voice cut in sharp with panic. "What twins? Why wasn't I told?" "We tried contacting you multiple times. You told staff to handle medical matters without bothering you unless it was critical. Who else knows? Only the NICU staff involved in her care." A pause. Then Preston lower. "Don't tell anyone else. I need time to think." The recording ended. I stared at the phone. 2 granddaughters. One had been alone in the NICU for 2 weeks, while everyone believed there was only one baby. Elliot, Kieran said, "There's more. This one's from last night." The second recording began. I recognized the acoustics immediately, the Beacon Hill house. Helena's voice. Two babies complicate everything. People will ask questions. Why wasn't the second child mentioned? Where has she been? Sloane replied, tense. I didn't sign up for two kids. One is hard enough. Preston asked. What are we supposed to do? I have a contact in Connecticut, Helena said, businesslike. She's desperate for a baby. No questions. She'll pay $100,000. Cash. Silence followed. Then Preston. You want to sell my daughter. She's a complication, Helena said. One baby makes you the tragic widower, raising his child alone. Two babies invite scrutiny. They'll dig. They'll find out about Sloane. About everything. Your mother's right, Sloane added. It's cleaner. Another pause. Then Preston said, Okay, set it up. I gripped the phone until my knuckles burned. Two granddaughters, and they plan to sell one like property. Elliot Kieran asked carefully. Training took over, evidence before emotion. Let them set it up, I said. Let them think it's happening. I want every detail recorded. If we move now, not yet. I walked to the window as snow began falling again. They're digging their own graves. What if they actually do it? They won't get the chance, I said. Trust me. I hung up and stood there, my reflection staring back from the dark glass. Two granddaughters, Iris and Violet, flowers that survive winter. No one was taking them from me. Let them try, I whispered. Let them dig deeper. I felt the weight of years settle into resolve. This was no longer grief alone, but duty. I would protect them with every legal tool, every contact, every ounce of patience I had earned. Whatever it took, I would finish this, for my daughter and for the children who survived her. For 15 nights I kept vigil. While Helena counted down to murder, I waited for a miracle. On the 29th night, my faith was answered. It began December 29th, the day after I learned about the twins and the plan to sell one of my granddaughters, like livestock. I couldn't stop them yet. Not without proof of the transaction, but I couldn't do nothing. So every night at 11, I returned to the hospital. I wore different disguises, a Red Sox cap one night, reading glasses, and a windbreaker the next. Security watches patterns, not faces. As long as the pattern changed, I stayed invisible. I slipped past night staff, took the stairs to the 4th floor, and stood outside room 412. I spoke to my daughter through the glass. Daddy's here, baby girl, I whispered. I'm fighting for you. For your daughters, Iris and Violet. Beautiful names for beautiful girls. Machines beeped steadily. Lydia didn't move. Still I talked. Remember when you were 7 and fell off your bike? Both knees bleeding, crying like the world had ended. Then you wiped your face and said, I'm not giving up. I'm getting back on. I need you to fight now. Night after night I returned. I told stories. I reminded her of her mother, my wife gone 10 years, who loved Lydia fiercely. Your mom would be so proud. She always said you were the strongest person she knew. On January 5th, I felt eyes on me. A nurse watched from the station, dark curls, kind eyes. Her tag read, Meredith Vale. You're her father, she said softly. I see you every night. I tensed. I am. They told us you'd accepted she was gone, that the funeral already happened. She studied me. But you're here. You know something. I know my daughter is fighting. I won't abandon her. Meredith nodded. I'll make sure security doesn't bother you. What you're doing matters. She became my ally. January 10th, I did something I hadn't done in 20 years. I entered the hospital chapel. Small. Quiet. I knelt awkwardly. I don't know if you're listening, I whispered. I stopped talking to you after my wife died. I was angry. But I need my daughter back. Please. My voice broke. If you give her back, I'll never ask again. The chapel stayed silent, yet felt less empty. January 13th, 11:47 p.m., night 29. I pressed my palm to the cold glass. 2 more days. They think they've won. They plan to sign papers, pull the plug, erase you. But we'll surprise them. Then I saw it. Lydia's right index finger twitched. I froze, watched. It moved again. Tears blurred my vision. Lydia, if you hear me, move it again. Her finger moved, slow, deliberate. I slammed the call button. Meredith rushed in. What is it? She moved, she responded. Meredith checked vitals, examined her hand. Oh my God. You're right. She's responding. Get Dr. Archer. At 1:30 a.m., Dr. Simone Archer stepped out, eyes bright with something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. Mr. Hartley, she said softly. Your daughter's eyes are open. She's asking for you. I felt my knees weaken, years of fear pouring out at once. The hallway lights seemed warmer, the air easier to breathe. For the first time since that terrible phone call, the future cracked open. she wasn't gone. She was still here, still fighting, and I was not alone anymore. At 2:17 a.m. on January 14th, exactly 30 days after they declared her dead, my daughter opened her eyes, whispered my name, and we set the trap. I rushed into the room. Lydia's eyes were open, tears streaming down her face, but she was awake, alive, aware. "Dad!" Her voice was hoarse, barely a whisper, but it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. I was at her bedside in 2 steps, taking her hand carefully. "I'm here, baby. I never left." "I heard you." More tears. "Every night. You were talking to me." My throat closed up. "You could hear me." She nodded weakly. "I heard everything. Preston, Helena, they wanted me dead. They were going to—" She choked on the words. "I know." I squeezed her hand gently. "I heard them too. I've been gathering evidence for 30 days. Her eyes widened, focused on me with desperate intensity. "My babies. Where are my babies?" "Safe. Both of them." I watched understanding dawn on her face. "You have 2 daughters, Lydia. Twins, Iris and Violet." 2 shock registered through her weakness. "I didn't know. They kept it from you. And they were planning to sell Violet for $100,000. Fury blazed in her eyes despite her exhaustion. "Over my dead body." "That was their plan," I said grimly. "But we're going to stop them." Dr. Archer entered, saw Lydia awake, and froze. This is remarkable. I need to report this recovery to—" "Wait." I stood, turning to her. "What time are they scheduled to come in today?" She checked her tablet, confused. 10 a.m. They have an appointment to discuss terminating life support. But now that she's— "Perfect." I looked at the clock on the wall. 2:30 a.m. 7.5 hours. "Doctor, can you keep this quiet until then?" "Mr. Hartley, I don't understand." "They're coming to kill my daughter. I want them to walk in and find her awake." "Can you do that?" Dr. Archer looked between me and Lydia. My daughter nodded weakly. "Yes," Dr. Archer said slowly. "Yes, I can do that." I pulled out my phone, called Kieran. He answered on the first ring. "It's happening today. Get to the hospital by 9:45. Bring 2 officers. Plain clothes. Room 412. She's awake. She's awake, and she's ready to face them." The next 7 hours crawled by. Dr. Archer kept the nursing staff minimal, told them Lydia was undergoing tests. Kieran arrived at 9:50 with 2 detectives I recognized from my old precinct. They positioned themselves in the adjacent storage room door, cracked ready. At 9:55, we helped Lydia sit up slightly in bed. She was still weak, still connected to monitors, but her eyes were clear and alert. I stood beside her, arms crossed. At exactly 10 a.m., we heard footsteps in the hallway. Helena's voice, cold and businesslike. "Let's get this over with." The door swung open. Helena entered first, pristine, in a black suit, carrying a leather folder. Preston followed, his face drawn and pale. Sloane came last, clutching a designer purse like a shield. All 3 held papers. Life support termination documents, I'd later learn. Helena looked up, froze. Lydia stared directly at her, awake, aware, alive. Preston's papers slipped from his hands, scattering across the floor. Sloane gasped, stumbling backward into the doorframe. The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. I watched their faces cycle through shock, confusion, then dawning horror. "Surprised," I said quietly. Helena recovered first, her face hardening. "This is impossible. You were—" "Dead." Lydia's voice was weak but steady. "Sorry to disappoint you." How— Preston stammered. "How long have I been awake?" Lydia finished. "Long enough. Long enough to hear my father tell me everything you planned. Long enough to know you wanted to sell my daughter." Helena's eyes snapped to me, cold fury replacing shock. "You!" I stepped forward, and for the first time in 30 days, I smiled. "Surprised you shouldn't be. I'm a detective, and detectives don't lose." They thought they were smart. They thought they had covered their tracks. They forgot one thing: I had spent 30 years putting criminals behind bars. And this case, this one, was airtight. Helena recovered first shock, hardening back into cold calculation. "This changes nothing," she said. "She's awake, but still mentally incompetent. We have medical power of attorney." The door opened. Detective Kieran Malloy stepped out of the adjacent room, badge raised. 2 uniformed officers followed. "Helena Hawthorne, Preston Hawthorne. Sloane Parrish," he said evenly. "You are under arrest." Preston's face drained of color. "What? This is insane? You're charged with conspiracy to commit murder, attempted child trafficking fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy to violate patient rights," Kieran continued. "I didn't do anything," Sloane shrieked. Helena's glare snapped toward me. You can't prove any of this. I removed my tablet and connected it to the hospital television. Can't I asked. Let me show you what 30 days of surveillance looks like. The screen lit up. Recording 1. December 15th. Hospital hallway. Helena's voice crackled through the speakers. Calm. Clinical. After 30 days, we pull the plug. Legal. Clean. Preston replied, What about Elliot? Helena said we tell him she's been cremated. I paused the clip. You planned my daughter's death while she was 10 feet away fighting to live. Preston stared at the floor. Recording 2. December 18th. Beacon Hill residence. Video footage played. A party. Sloane wore Lydia's cream cardigan, the one I'd given her years ago. She held Madison smiling. A woman said, You and Preston make a beautiful family. Sloane replied, Thank you. It's been an adjustment. Adjustment, I repeated. You moved into her home, wore her clothes, held her child, and accepted praise while she lay in a coma. Sloane sobbed. I didn't know. Recording 3. December the 28th. Hospital consultation room. Dr. Archer spoke. Your wife delivered twins. The second baby is in the NICU. Preston asked, Who else knows? Only staff. Don't tell anyone Preston cut in. I stopped the recording. You hid your own daughter because she was inconvenient. Recording 4. Same day. Beacon Hill living room. Helena's voice returned. I have a contact in Connecticut. $100,000. Cash. Preston asked, You want to sell my daughter? She's a complication, Helena replied. A pause. Then Preston said, Okay, set it up. One officer shook his head. You were going to sell my 6-day-old granddaughter, I said. This is entrapment, Helena snapped. No, I replied calmly. Lydia installed security cameras months ago. She owned the house. The recordings are legal. You just forgot they existed. I tapped the tablet again. Bank records show Preston withdrew $50,000 from Lydia's accounts while she was unconscious. That was for the baby. Phone records show Helena made 47 calls to a Connecticut buyer. She's already in custody. Helena's face went pale. We also have sworn statements from hospital staff describing your behavior and disregard for Lydia's life. I looked at them. I've built cases for 30 years. I know how to make evidence stand, and this one will. Preston collapsed into a chair. Mom, you said it would work. Shut up, Helena screamed. Sloane sobbed uncontrollably. I didn't know about selling the baby, I swear. Silence, Helena barked. Detective Malloy stepped forward and read their rights. Helena turned on me. You think you've won? Beforiled? Lydia's voice cut through the room. Weak, clear. You wanted me dead, she said. So you could take my life, my children, my home. Tears streamed down her face. I heard everything, every lie, every plan. She took a breath. I'm alive, and you'll remember that in prison. I placed my hand on her shoulder. You underestimated a father's love, I said. That was your mistake. The officers cuffed them. Preston didn't resist. Sloane sobbed. Helena stayed silent. As they reached the door, Helena turned back. Her hatred was gone. Only realization remained. The door closed. The room was quiet. I looked at my daughter. Alive. It's over, I said softly. And for the first time it truly was. That afternoon, Nurse Meredith brought my granddaughters to meet their mother for the first time. 3 months later, I watched justice being served in a way that made every moment of those 30 days of hell worth it. After the arrests, after the chaos faded, Dr. Archer approached quietly. I think there are 2 little girls who need to meet their mother. I nodded, unable to speak. 30 minutes later, Nurse Meredith Vale wheeled 2 isolettes into the room. Inside slept 2 tiny babies, identical down to the dimples in their chins, unaware of how close their lives had come to being taken. Lydia gasped, My girls! My girls! The nurses carefully lifted them first, one then the other, and finally placed them together in Lydia's arms. She held Iris and Violet against her chest, sobbing openly, kissing their soft heads. I'm your mama, she whispered. I'm here. I stood beside her, tears falling. They're perfect. Just like you. You saved them, Lydia said. You saved all of us. I touched one tiny hand. I named them while you were asleep. Iris for wisdom, Violet for strength, flowers that survive winter. Perfect, she whispered. Iris curled her fingers around mine. Violet nestled closer to her mother. For the first time in 30 days, the room felt peaceful. 3 months later, April 15th, 2025, we stood inside Suffolk County Courthouse, beneath a gray Boston sky. The courtroom was full media observers, strangers drawn by the story, a detective father, a nearly murdered daughter, grandchildren almost sold. Lydia sat beside me stronger now after months of therapy. Judge Roland Blackwell presided, his face stern and unmoved. The evidence left no room for doubt. Will the defendants rise? Helena stood rigid. Preston looked broken. Sloane trembled. Preston Hawthorne, the judge said, "You are found guilty on all counts. 18 years in state prison." Preston swayed. Helena Hawthorne, the judge, continued, "Mastermind of these crimes. 15 years without parole." Helena did not react. Sloane perish. 8 years. Sloane sobbed. The judge added restraining orders, asset forfeiture, and the permanent termination of Preston's parental rights. The gavel struck. Justice was final. Outside, reporters shouted questions. "How do you feel?" I guided Lydia to the car. Justice was served. Life moved forward. Lydia recovered steadily. She moved into my guest house. We rebuilt her life piece by piece. We co-wrote a book, The Father Who Never Stopped Fighting. It became a bestseller. Every dollar went into trusts for Iris and Violet, along with the proceeds from the Beacon Hill house. Lydia began speaking publicly about patients' rights and protecting the vulnerable. She filed for divorce. Preston signed from prison. And I helped raise my granddaughters. Midnight feedings, diapers, lullabies. At 63, I discovered the greatest job of my life. Summer came. One warm Saturday, we spread a quilt beneath an oak tree in Boston Common. Iris and Violet sat upright now, 6 months old, curious and bright. Iris studied a blade of grass. Violet laughed at a butterfly. Lydia sat nearby, writing in her journal, peaceful. I tickled Violet's belly. She laughed pure and bright. "Your mother's a fighter," I whispered, "and your grandpa never learned to quit." Lydia joined me. "You saved us." "That's what fathers do," I said. "We fight, we protect." She leaned against me. We saved each other. I lifted both girls, one in each arm, their wide eyes reflecting the golden sky. "They tried to bury us," I said softly, "but love doesn't die." The sun set over Boston as I held my granddaughters, and my daughter sat beside me. We had faced evil, and we had won. Because love, real fierce love, always wins. So that's my story. That's how a grandfather became a detective one last time, how 30 days of hell became the fight of my life, and how God gave me back everything I thought I'd lost. Looking back now, I see his hand in every moment. When I found Lydia alive that first night, that was God. When my finger twitched on day 29, that was God answering my prayers in that empty chapel. When everything came together at exactly the right moment, that wasn't luck. That was divine timing. These grandpa stories we tell aren't just entertainment. This true story taught me that evil exists, but so does grace. So does redemption. So does the power of a father who refuses to give up. If you're reading this and you're in a situation where something feels wrong, trust your instincts. Don't be like the people who saw the signs and stayed silent. Don't be like those who chose comfort over courage. Be the person who asks questions, who digs deeper, who fights when everyone else walks away. I've learned that God places us exactly where we need to be, even in the darkest moments. He gave me 30 years as a detective, not just to solve crimes, but to prepare me for the one case that mattered most, saving my daughter and granddaughters. This true story isn't just mine. It belongs to every parent, every grandparent who's ever had to fight for their family. These grandpa stories remind us that love is stronger than evil, that hope survives even in coma-induced darkness, and that justice, real justice, is worth fighting for. To Iris and Violet, when you're old enough to read this, your mother is the strongest person I know. And your grandfather? I'm just an old man who loved you before you took your first breath. That's what the best grandpa stories teach us. Never give up on the people you love. Never stop fighting. And always, always trust that God has a plan, even when you can't see it. If this true story touched your heart, drop a comment below telling me what you'd do in my situation. Share this with someone who needs to hear that miracles are real. And subscribe to this channel because every story we share might save a life. Love always wins. Remember that.